The stars were dying. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human ship Starbound, watching the empty space where Altair 7 used to shine. 3 days ago, it had been a bright blue star with 6 planets full of life. Now there was nothing but cold darkness spreading like black ink across the galaxy. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. He had been awake for 36 hours straight, ever since the emergency signals started coming in from all over the outer rim. The void swarm was moving faster than anyone had expected. The Alliance fleets were falling back on every front, and the news got worse with each passing hour. "Sir, we're getting another transmission from Kepler Station," said Communications Officer Grace Martinez from her station. Her voice was tight with worry. "It's marked as Priority 1. Jake nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Admiral Lisa Carter. She looked older than Jake remembered, with new lines around her eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. Behind her, he could see the chaos of the Alliance Command Center. Officers were running back and forth, alarm lights were flashing, and everyone looked scared. "Commander Morrison," Admiral Carter said, her voice steady despite everything falling apart around her. "I need you to listen carefully. We don't have much time." Jake straightened up. "Yes, Admiral. What's the situation?" Carter's face grew grim. "The situation is that we've lost. The final defense line at Beta Centauri fell 6 hours ago. The Void Swarm consumed 3 entire star systems in 1 day. We have maybe 48 hours before they reach the core worlds." The bridge went silent. Chief Engineer Ben Taylor dropped his datapad. Weapons Specialist Kate Williams turned away from her console, her face pale. Navigator Alex Johnson just stared at the screen with his mouth open. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Admiral, what about the other fleets? The Zephyrian battle groups? The crystalline elder ships?" "Gone," Carter said simply. The Zephyrians tried to make a stand at their home world. The entire planet was consumed in 2 hours. The crystalline elders retreated to their hidden sanctuaries. As for the other races, she shook her head. "They're either dead, running, or hiding. So what do we do?" Jake asked. Carter leaned forward, and Jake saw something in her eyes that surprised him. It wasn't despair. It was determination. "We fight." Then Taylor let out a bitter laugh. "Fight? Admiral, with respect, if the entire Alliance couldn't stop this thing, what can a few human ships do?" Carter's expression didn't change. "That's exactly what I'm counting on, Engineer." "The fact that you're human," Jake frowned. "I don't understand." "Commander, in all my years serving with the Alliance, I've learned something about the different races in our galaxy. The Zephyrians are peaceful and wise. The crystalline elders are ancient and powerful. The Hydorians are brilliant scientists. But humans ... double quotes. She paused. "Humans are different." "Different how?" Kate asked. "Every other race in the galaxy evolved past their violent stage millions of years ago. They learned to solve problems with wisdom, technology, and peaceful cooperation. But humans are still close to their warrior roots. You still remember how to fight when there's no hope left." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was listening carefully, but he could see they didn't understand yet. "Admiral, I still don't see how that helps us against something that destroyed civilizations millions of years more advanced than us." Carter smiled, and it was a scary smile. "Because those advanced civilizations all had something in common. When they faced the Void Swarm, they tried to find reasonable solutions. They looked for diplomatic answers. They retreated when the situation became hopeless. They gave up when victory seemed impossible." She leaned back in her chair. "But humans don't do that, do they? When a human is cornered, what do? Alex Johnson spoke up quietly. "They fight back." "Exactly," Carter said. "They fight back, Even when it's stupid. Even when it's hopeless. Even when everyone tells them they can't win. Jake began to understand. You want us to do something crazy. I want you to do something human, Carter corrected. I want you to gather every human ship you can find in the Outer Rim. I want you to study everything we know about the Void Swarm. And then I want you to attack them. The bridge erupted in shocked voices. Attack them, Ben said. Admiral, that's suicide. Maybe, Carter agreed. But it's also the only thing. No one else has tried. Every other species retreated, hid, or tried to negotiate. No one has ever launched a direct assault on the Void Swarm's main force. Because it's impossible, Kate protested. Impossible for them, Carter said. But humans have a long history of doing impossible things. You fought wars against enemies with better technology. You explored dangerous new worlds. You never gave up, even when you should have. Jake stared at the screen, thinking. Everything the Admiral said was true. Humans did have a reputation in the galaxy for being stubborn and reckless. Other races often called them unpredictable and too aggressive. But maybe, for once, those traits could be useful. What exactly are you asking us to do? He said finally. Find the other human ships. There are colonies scattered all across the Outer Rim that might have survived. Gather them together. Learn everything you can about how the Void Swarm fights. And then ... double quotes. Carter paused. Then do what humans do best. Fight like you have nothing left to lose. The transmission flickered as explosions shook Kepler Station. Carter looked over his shoulder, then back at the screen. I have to go, Commander. The station is under attack. Remember what I said. The galaxy is counting on human stubbornness now. The screen went dark. Jake stood in silence for a long moment, looking at his crew. They were all staring back at him, waiting for orders. Finally, he turned to Alex at the navigation station. Set course for the Titan Nebula, he said. We're going to find every human ship still flying and see if we can save the galaxy. As the Starbound turned toward the distant nebula, Jake wondered if they were brave or just completely insane. Maybe, he thought, with humans there wasn't much difference. The ruins of Zindar Prime floated in space like broken dreams. Commander Jake Morrison watched through the main screen as the Starbound approached what used to be the capital of the Zephyrian Empire. The beautiful crystal cities that once sparkled like jewels were now dark chunks of twisted metal and stone. The planet's surface was covered in a strange black substance that seemed to eat light itself. Sensors are barely working here, Navigator Alex Johnson reported from his station. Something about this place is interfering with our equipment. The Void Swarm leaves a signature, explained Chief Engineer Ben Taylor, studying his readings. It's like they poison the space around them. Even after they're gone, the area stays wrong somehow. Jake nodded grimly. In the past 2 weeks, they had found 6 more human ships hiding in the Outer Rim. The small fleet now had 12 vessels, ranging from military cruisers to converted cargo haulers. It wasn't much, but it was more than anyone else had managed to gather. Sir, I'm picking up a faint signal from the planet's surface. Grace Martinez called out from communications. It's weak, but it's definitely artificial. Jake straightened up. Can't you clean it up? Grace worked at her console for several minutes, adjusting frequencies and filtering out static. Finally, a voice came through the speakers. It was human, female, and very tired. This is Dr. Nina Rodriguez at Research Station 7. If anyone can hear this, I'm still alive down here. I've been studying the Void Swarm specimens for 3 months. I have information that could help. Jake looked at his crew. How long has that message been repeating? About 4 days, Grace answered. But sir, the signal is coming from the planet's surface. If she's really down there, she's been alone with those things for 3 months, Kate Williams finished. That's either very brave or very crazy. With humans, sometimes it's both, Jake said. Alex, can you find us a safe landing spot? 20 minutes later, Jake led a small team down to the planet's surface. The landing party included Kate, Ben, and 2 Marines from the cruiser Defiance. They wore full environmental suits because the air itself seemed poisoned by whatever the Void Swarm had done to this world. Research Station 7 was built into the side of a mountain, hidden behind what looked like natural rock formations. When they reached the entrance, they found blast doors that had been welded shut from the inside. Ben had to cut through 3 layers of metal before they could get in. Dr. Nina Rodriguez met them in the main lab. She was a small woman with dark hair and sharp eyes that looked like they had seen too much. Her lab coat was stained and patched, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. But she was alive, and she was smiling. I wasn't sure anyone would come, she said, shaking Jake's hand. When the Alliance fleets retreated, I thought I might be the last person left in this sector. What have you been doing down here? Jake asked, looking around the lab. It was filled with strange equipment and what looked like pieces of black material in containment units. Studying them, Nina said simply. Everyone else was running away or fighting them. I wanted to understand what they actually are. She led them to a large screen showing complex diagrams and data charts. The Void Swarm isn't just a destructive force. It's much worse than that. It's weaponized despair. Ben frowned. What does that mean? It means they don't just destroy things, Nina explained. They feed on hope. They consume the will to fight. The more advanced and peaceful a civilization is, the easier it is for them to drain away everything that makes life worth living. Kate stared at the data. That's why the Alliance forces gave up so easily. They weren't just being destroyed. They were being made to feel hopeless. Exactly, Nina said. The Zephyrians tried to negotiate because they couldn't imagine any other solution. The Crystalline Elders retreated because they decided the situation was impossible. Every other race followed the same pattern. When faced with the Void Swarm, they lost the will to fight back. Jake thought about Admiral Carter's words, but humans are different. Yes, Nina said, her eyes lighting up. That's what I've been trying to prove. Look at this. She showed them recordings of Void Swarm attacks on different worlds. When they attack a Zephyrian city, the defenders stop fighting within hours. They just give up. Same with the other races. But look at this. The screen showed a recording from a human colony world. The Void Swarm was attacking, but the human defenders were still fighting back even as their city burned around them. They kept shooting even when their weapons barely worked. They kept trying to evacuate civilians even when escape seemed impossible. They fought for 18 hours, Nina said quietly. Long after any reasonable person would have surrendered. The Void Swarm eventually won, but it took them much longer than usual. And look at the energy readings. She pointed to the data streams. The Void entities were actually being weakened by the fight. Human determination and anger were somehow interfering with their ability to drain hope from the area. Ben whistled softly. So our stubbornness actually hurts them? More than that, Nina said. I think human emotions might be toxic to them. They're used to feeding on despair and hopelessness. But when they encounter rage, determination, and refusal to give up, it confuses their entire system. Jake felt something stirring in his chest. It wasn't hope exactly, but it was close. Dr. Rodriguez, what you're saying is that we might actually have a chance. A small one, she agreed. But yes, every other race in the galaxy evolved past their capacity for controlled aggression. They became too civilized, too peaceful. But humans still remember how to be angry. You still know how to fight dirty when you have to. Kate grinned fiercely. So what do we do with this information? Nina walked over to another set of displays. I've been intercepting communications from across the galaxy. There are isolated human settlements that have survived void swarm attacks. Small groups using guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run strategies, anything that keeps them moving and fighting. She brought up a star chart showing dozens of blinking lights. These are confirmed human survivors. They're scattered across the outer rim, but they're still out there, still fighting. Jake studied the map. How many? At least 50 groups, maybe more. Some are military units that got cut off from the main fleets. Others are civilian colonies that armed themselves. A few are even individual ships that have been conducting one-person wars against the void swarm. Alex spoke up from where he had been quietly listening. Commander, if we could bring all these groups together, we'd have a real fleet, Jake finished. Not just 12 ships. Maybe 100 or more. Nina nodded enthusiastically. And I can help you find them. I've been tracking their movements and communications patterns. More importantly, I can teach you how to fight the void swarm effectively. How? Ben asked. By being human, Nina said simply. By doing what no other species has done. Instead of trying to find a peaceful solution or a technological advantage, we use our capacity for righteous anger. We fight them with everything we have, and we never ever give up. Jake looked around at his team. He saw the same thing in their faces that he felt in his own heart. It wasn't quite hope yet, but it was determination. It was the human refusal to lie down and die quietly. All right, Dr. Rodriguez, he said, pack up your research. We're going to gather every human fighter we can find and see if we can teach the galaxy how to fight back. As they prepared to leave the dead world of Zindara Prime, Jake felt something he hadn't experienced since the crisis began. For the first time in weeks, he actually believed they might have a chance to win. The asteroid field in the Titan Nebula had become humanity's secret weapon factory. Commander Jake Morrison floated through the makeshift command center built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Around him, human engineers and technicians worked, alongside alien refugees to build something the galaxy had never seen before. The smell of welding torches and machine oil filled the recycled air, mixed with the constant hum of generators and life support systems. In the 3 weeks since they had rescued Dr. Nina Rodriguez, their small fleet had grown to 47 ships. Word had spread through hidden channels that humans were fighting back, and survivors kept arriving daily. Some came in military vessels, others in converted civilian ships held together with spare parts and determination. Commander, you need to see this, called Captain Rachel Stone from across the command center. She was a former Alliance pilot who had been leading hit-and-run attacks against Void Swarm scouts for 2 months. Her short blonde hair was streaked with grease, and her flight suit was patched in a dozen places. Jake pushed off from a wall and floated over to where Rachel was standing with Chief Engineer Ben, Taylor, and Dr. Rodriguez. They were gathered around a workbench covered with strange-looking devices that glowed with a dim red light. What am I looking at? Jake asked. We call them rage cores, Ben said, grinning like a kid with a new toy. Dr. Rodriguez figured out how to turn human emotions into actual power. Nina looked up from her work, her eyes bright with excitement. Remember how I said human determination seemed to interfere with the Void Swarm's ability to drain hope? Well, I found a way to amplify that effect. She picked up one of the glowing devices. It was about the size of a human fist, made of crystalline material that pulsed with internal light. These cores don't just run on regular power. They respond to the emotional state of the person operating them. The angrier or more determined the user gets, the more power they produce. Jake stared at the device. You're serious? Dead serious, Ben said. We've been testing them for a week. When weapons specialist Kate Williams gets mad enough, she can increase weapon power by 300%. When I'm really focused, On keeping the engines running, I can push them past their normal limits without burning them out. Rachel held up another device, this one built into what looked like a pilot's helmet. And this is the best part. We've modified fighter craft controls to work with the rage cores. When I'm flying angry, my ship responds faster and hits harder than anything I've ever piloted before. Jake looked around at the three of them. This actually works? Better than we hoped, Nina said. But there's more. The cores don't just give us more power. They create fields that actively repel void swarm attacks. It's like our anger and determination create a bubble that their despair weapons can't penetrate. Show me, Jake said. 20 minutes later, Jake was strapped into the co-pilot seat of Rachel's modified fighter as they flew toward a section of space where void swarm scouts had been detected. The cockpit was different from any human fighter he had ever seen. Instead of the usual clean, efficient layout, everything was designed to keep the pilot emotionally engaged. The trick is not to get crazy angry, Rachel explained as she checked her instruments. It's controlled anger, focused rage. You have to be mad at the right things for the right reasons. And what are you mad about? Jake asked. Rachel's face grew hard. I'm mad that these things destroyed entire civilizations. I'm mad that they made billions of people give up hope. I'm mad that they think they can make humans quit fighting. The rage core in her helmet began to glow brighter. And I'm really mad that they picked a fight with the one species in the galaxy too stubborn to know when they're beaten. The fighter's engines responded to her emotions, pushing them forward faster than should have been possible. Jake felt his own anger building as he thought about all the worlds that had been lost. All the people who had died because an ancient evil had decided to consume the galaxy. Contact, Rachel said, her voice sharp with focus. 3 Void Scouts. Bearing 27 Mark IV. Jake saw them on the scanner. Dark shapes that seemed to bend space around them. Even looking at them through the instruments made him feel a cold touch of despair trying to creep into his mind. Remember what Dr. Rodriguez taught us, Rachel said. Don't let them make you feel hopeless. Get mad instead. She dove toward the nearest Void Scout, weapons charging with energy drawn from her determination. The enemy ship fired first, sending waves of despair-based attacks that would have crippled any other fighter. The rage core field around Rachel's ship deflected the attacks like armor made of pure human stubbornness. Rachel's return fire was devastating. Her weapons, powered by controlled fury, tore through the Void Scout's defenses and destroyed it in seconds. The other 2 scouts tried to retreat, but Rachel was faster. She hunted them down with the single-minded focus of someone who had lost too much to give up now. When the last enemy ship exploded, Jake realized he was shaking. Not from fear, but from excitement. That was incredible. That was human, Rachel corrected. Now imagine what we can do with 47 ships all fighting like that. Back at the base, Jake called together all the ship captains for a strategy meeting. The command center was crowded with humans from a dozen different worlds, along with a few alien allies who had learned to fight alongside them. Captain Sam Peterson commanded the heavy cruiser Defiance, the largest ship in their fleet. He was a big man with gray hair and scars from fighting void swarm boarding parties. Commander, we've got enough ships to make a real difference now. When do we hit them? Soon, Jake said. But first, we need to make sure everyone understands how to fight these things. Dr. Rodriguez, tell them what you told me. Nina stood up, looking nervous but determined. The Void Swarm has been winning for thousands of years because they fight the same way every time. They send scouts to drain hope from an area. Then they move in with the main force to consume everything that's left. They expect their enemies to either run away or try to negotiate. She activated a display showing tactical information. But they've never faced an enemy that gets stronger when pushed into a corner. They don't know how to deal. with opponents who fight harder when things look hopeless. Colonel Frank Miller, who commanded the Marine Forces, spoke up. "So what's the plan?" Jake smiled grimly. "We're going to do something no one else has tried. We're going to attack them when they least expect it, using tactics they've never seen before." He brought up a star chart showing void swarm positions. Intelligence reports show a major enemy fleet moving toward the Kepler sector. They're planning to consume the last Alliance strongholds there, but they have to pass through the Meridian system to get there. "An ambush," Rachel said, understanding immediately. "More than that," Jake said. "We're going to teach them what happens when they try to break the human spirit." "Ben, how long until all our ships have rage core systems installed?" "2 more days," Ben replied. "Good. In 3 days, we launch Operation Breakout. 47 human ships against a void swarm fleet that's never lost a battle." Jake looked around the room at the faces of his fellow humans. They think they've won because they consumed the peaceful races first. But they saved the best for last. Captain Peterson grinned fiercely. "They wanted to fight humans? Let's show them what that really means." As the meeting broke up and everyone returned to their preparations, Jake felt something he hadn't experienced since the war began. It wasn't just hope or determination. It was anticipation. For the first time in this conflict, humanity was going to go on the attack. The Void Swarm had spent millennia learning how to crush the spirits of civilized races. Now they were about to discover that humans had spent their entire history learning how to fight dirty, fight angry, and never give up. The darkness had ruled the galaxy for far too long. It was time to bring the light. The Meridian system burned with the light of human fury. Commander Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the Starbound as 47 human ships tore into the Void Swarm fleet like angry hornets attacking a giant. The enemy had expected to find empty space on their way to destroy the last Alliance worlds. Instead, they had flown straight into humanity's first real trap. "Go Squadron, hit their left flank," Jake ordered into his communications device. "Defiance, target there. Command ships, all other vessels, pick your targets and make them count." The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of the careful, defensive tactics used by other races, the human fleet fought with controlled chaos. Ships dove in and out of enemy formations, striking hard and fast before disappearing behind asteroids and debris clouds. "Captain Rachel." Stone's voice crackled over the radio from her fighter. "This is Ghost Leader. Their scouts are breaking formation. They don't know how to handle our attack patterns." Jake smiled grimly. 3 months ago, the Void Swarm had seemed unstoppable. Now, faced with opponents who fought back with increasing fury instead of growing despair, they looked confused and slow. "Commander," called Communications Officer Grace Martinez, "I'm picking up transmissions from across the galaxy. Other ships are watching this battle somehow." "Put it on speaker," Jake said. The bridge filled with voices speaking different alien languages, but the universal translators made their meaning clear. Zephyrian refugees hiding in distant systems were cheering. Crystalline Elder observers were expressing amazement. Even races that had never spoken to humans before were sending messages of support. "The whole galaxy is watching us fight," Weapons Specialist Kate Williams said from her station. Her rage core was glowing bright red as she poured concentrated human anger into the ship's weapons. No pressure or anything. The largest void ship in the enemy fleet suddenly turned toward the Starbound, its dark hull crackling with despair energy. Jake felt the familiar cold touch trying to seep into his mind, whispering that this fight was hopeless, that humanity should just give up and accept defeat. "All hands," Jake announced over the ship's speakers. "Remember what we're fighting. 4. Remember everyone who's counting on us. And remember that we're humans and humans don't quit. The crew's response was immediate. Rage cores throughout the ship blazed brighter as every person on board focused their determination into a single purpose. The starbound shields flared with energy that had never existed before in the galaxy. Pure weaponized stubbornness. The void ship's despair attack hit their shields and simply bounced off. Jake could almost hear the enemy's confusion as their most powerful weapon failed completely. "Kate, show them what human anger looks like," Jake said. Kate's weapons fired with the combined fury of 500 humans who had watched their galaxy burn and decided to do something about it. The energy beams didn't just damage the void ship. They seemed to burn away the darkness itself, leaving bright scars across the enemy's hull. Across the battlefield, the human fleet was winning. Captain Sam Peterson's cruiser Defiance was trading shots with 3 void ships at once and coming out ahead. Colonel Frank Miller's Marines had actually boarded an enemy vessel and were fighting hand-to-hand in its corridors, their rage core armor making them nearly invincible against despair-based attacks. But the real surprise came from the alien survivors who had joined the human fleet. Dr. Nina Rodriguez had been working with refugee crews from other races, teaching them how to fight alongside humans. A Zephyrian warrior named Crystalline Echo was flying alongside Rachel's fighters, having learned to channel his people's ancient warrior spirit through human-designed rage cores. "Commander," Ben Taylor called from engineering. "I'm getting readings I've never seen before. The void ships aren't just retreating. They're actually afraid." Jake looked at the tactical display. The enemy fleet, which had numbered over 200 ships at the start of the battle, was down to less than 50. The survivors were trying to escape, but human fighters harassed them at every turn. "Let some of them go," Jake ordered, surprising his crew. "Sir?" Kate asked. "Let them run back to their main fleet," Jake explained. "Let them tell their commanders what happened here. Let them spread the word that humans fight back." As the last void ships fled into hyperspace, the human fleet regrouped in the center of the Meridian system. Jake looked around his bridge at his exhausted but triumphant crew. They had done something no other race had managed in 3,000 years. They had defeated a major void swarm fleet in open battle. "Damage report," Jake said. 3 ships lost, 7 more with heavy damage, Grace reported. "But sir, we destroyed over 150 enemy vessels. The loss ratio is better than anyone thought possible." Jake nodded, but he could see the cost in his crew's faces. They had won, but they had lost friends in the process. Human victory always came with a price. "Commander," Dr. Rodriguez said, entering the bridge with a datapad full of readings. "The energy signatures from this battle are spreading across subspace. Every communications network in the galaxy is carrying reports of what happened here." She showed him the data. "Messages are coming in from human colonies that have been hiding for months. They're ready to fight now. More importantly, other races are starting to remember their own warrior traditions." Jake studied the reports. Refugee fleets that had been running for years were suddenly turning to face their pursuers. Crystalline Elder sanctuaries were opening their doors and sending out war fleets for the first time in millennia. Even the peaceful Zephyrians were organizing resistance groups. "It's spreading," he realized. "The willingness to fight back is spreading like a virus." "A good virus," Nina said. "Humans showed the galaxy that the void swarm can be beaten. Now everyone wants to try." Captain Peterson's voice came over the communication system from the Defiance. "Commander Morrison, we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Carter." Jake had thought Admiral Carter was dead. No one had heard from her since Kepler Station fell 6 weeks ago. "Put her through." The main screen flickered to life, showing Carter's face. She looked tired and worn, but she was alive and smiling. Behind her, Jake could see what looked like a massive military installation. "Congratulations, Commander," Carter said. "The entire galaxy watched your victory. I have representatives from 16 different species asking how they can join the human resistance." "Admiral, where are you?" Jake asked. "Sanctuary base, hidden in the Void Nebula. We've been building something while you were fighting." Her smile grew wider. "Jake, we've got over 300 ships here. UN vessels, alien allies, even some crystalline elder dreadnoughts that came out of deep storage." Jake felt his heart racing. 300 ships? And more arriving every day. Your victory proved that this war can be won. Now every free race in the galaxy wants to be part of the final push. Carter's expression grew serious. "We found it, Jake. We've located the Void Swarm's central nest." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew that the central nest was the source of the entire Void Swarm. It was a massive structure at the galactic core that had been growing for millions of years. No one had ever gotten close enough to attack it. "It's time for the real battle," Carter continued. "Operation Daybreak. We're going to take the combined fleet and hit the nest directly. End this war once and for all." Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were scared. He could see it in their faces. But they were also determined. They had proven that humans could fight the Void Swarm and win. Now they had a chance to save not just the galaxy, but every future generation that would live in it. "Admiral," Jake said, "when do we launch?" "As soon as you can get here. The galaxy is counting on human stubbornness one more time." As the Starbound and his sister ships prepared to jump to hyperspace, Jake thought about how far they had come. 3 months ago, they were just a small group of survivors running from an unstoppable enemy. Now they were leading the largest military alliance in galactic history. The darkness had ruled for too long. It was time to bring the dawn. The galactic core was a place where stars went to die. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Starbound, watching the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for the final battle. 300 ships from dozens of different worlds hung in space around them, all united by humanity's stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The Void Swarm's central nest loomed ahead like a cancer made of darkness. It was massive beyond imagination, a twisted structure the size of a small moon that had been growing at the heart of the galaxy for millions of years. Around it, countless void ships moved in perfect formation, protecting their ancient home. "Final systems check," Jake announced to his crew. Chief Engineer Ben Taylor nodded from his station, where the ship's new Rage Core reactor hummed with concentrated human determination. Weapons Specialist Kate Williams ran her hands over controls that would channel the fury of 500 crew members into weapons of pure destruction. "All ships report ready." Communications Officer Grace Martinez sighed. "Admiral Carter is requesting final confirmation for Operation Daybreak." Jake looked around his bridge one last time. Navigator Alex Johnson was pale but focused. Dr. Nina Rodriguez sat at a science station, monitoring readings that would tell them if their desperate plan was working. Captain Rachel Stone was in the fighter bay, preparing to lead the most dangerous assault mission in galactic history. "Tell the Admiral we're ready," Jake said. Admiral Carter's voice echoed across the fleet communications channel. "All ships, this is it. Everything we fought for comes down to the next few hours. Remember what Dr. Rodriguez discovered about the nest's core. Remember that we're not just fighting for ourselves, but for every living thing in the galaxy." Jake activated his own ship's communication system. "Starbound to all vessels. Today, we prove that hope is stronger than despair. Today, we show the universe that humans never give up. Let's go save the galaxy." The fleet moved forward as one. Human ships led the charge, their rage cores blazing with the combined anger and determination of millions of people who had lost everything but refused to quit. Alien vessels followed, their crews having learned to fight with human fury instead of their old careful tactics. The Void Swarm responded immediately. Thousands of enemy ships poured out from around the nest, moving to intercept the attacking fleet. The space between the fleets filled with weapons fire and the strange dark energy that the void creatures used to drain hope from their enemies. But something was different this time. Instead of feeling despair when the enemy attacked, the Allied fleet fought harder. Human crews channeled their grief for lost worlds into devastating weapon strikes. Alien warriors who had learned from human teachers met despair with rage and turned fear into fuel for their engines. "Go Squadron, we need a path to the nest." "Core," Jake called to Rachel over the radio. "On it, Commander," Rachel replied. Her voice was tight with concentration as she led her fighters through the chaos of battle. "We'll punch a hole through their defenses." Jake watched on his tactical display as Rachel's squadron dove into the enemy formation. They flew like humans fought, with controlled chaos and absolute refusal to retreat. Void ships tried to surround them, but the human pilots were too unpredictable, too willing to take risks that no other species would attempt. Captain Sam Peterson's voice crackled over the communications. "Defiance to Starbound. We're taking heavy damage, but we're keeping their main fleet busy. Whatever you're going to do it fast." Jake looked at Dr. Rodriguez. "Doctor, are you sure about this?" Nina's face was grim but determined. "The readings are clear. The heart of despair at the center of the nest isn't just their power source. It's a prison. Something has been trapped in there for millions of years. The last remnant of hope from the first civilization the Void Swarm destroyed. And you think we can free it?" "I think humans can do what no other race could," Nina said. "I think you can break a prison made of despair by hitting it with enough concentrated hope and fury." The Starbound shook as enemy fire struck their shields. Around them, the battle was becoming desperate. Human and alien ships were being destroyed, but their crews fought to the last moment, buying time for the final assault. Rachel's opened. "A path," Alex reported from navigation. "But it won't stay open long. All power to engines," Jake ordered. "We're going in." The Starbound raced toward the nest's core, followed by 12 other ships that had managed to break through the enemy lines. Behind them, the rest of the fleet held off thousands of void ships in the largest space battle in galactic history. As they approached the nest's center, Jake saw it, the heart of despair. It was a sphere of absolute darkness that seemed to eat light itself. Just looking at it made him feel cold and hopeless, as if nothing good could ever happen again. Rage. "Core's at maximum," Ben called from engineering. "But sir, even if we hit that thing with everything we have, I don't know if it'll be enough to break it." Jake made a decision that felt both terrifying and completely right. "All ships, prepare for ramming speed. We're going to break that prison. The only way humans know how, by refusing to quit even when it kills us." "Sir?" Kate asked, her voice small. "Set the rage cores to overload," Jake said calmly. "We're going to hit that thing with more concentrated human stubbornness than the universe has ever seen. If that doesn't free whatever's trapped in there, nothing will." The 13 ships accelerated toward the heart of despair. Their crews knew they were flying toward death, but not one of them hesitated. They were human, and humans had been charging into hopeless battles for their entire species' history. At the last moment, Jake activated the ship's communication system one final time. "This is Commander Jake Morrison to anyone listening. Tell them humans were here. Tell them we didn't give up. Tell them the darkness never really won, because we never stopped fighting." The ship struck the heart of despair with the force of 13 rage core reactors exploding simultaneously. The prison of ancient despair cracked under the assault of pure human determination. Light began to pour through the cracks. Not ordinary light, but something older and more powerful. Hope. The imprisoned hope of the first civilization destroyed by the void swarm erupted from its prison like a star being born. It spread outward, in a wave that passed through every ship in the battle, through every void creature, through every corner of the galaxy. The void swarm, suddenly faced with the return of hope to the universe, began to dissolve. Their ships stopped fighting and started falling apart. The darkness that had consumed star systems for millions of years was burned away by light that remembered what it meant to believe in tomorrow. Jake woke up in a medical bay 3 days later. Somehow, the explosion that destroyed the heart of despair had also thrown the surviving crew members clear in escape pods. It was impossible, but then again, humans had made a career out of doing impossible things. Admiral Carter was waiting by his bed. The war's over, Jake. The void swarm is gone. Every system they consumed is returning to normal. Stars are shining again in places that have been dark for thousands of years. Jake sat up slowly. The cost? High, Carter admitted. We lost a lot of good people, but the galaxy is free. And more importantly, every race in the galaxy now knows that hope is stronger than despair. You taught them that. Months later, Jake stood on the bridge of a new ship, watching human exploration vessels head out to the reclaimed sectors of the galaxy. They weren't flying alone. Alien crews worked alongside humans, all of them having learned that cooperation and determination could overcome any darkness. The galaxy had almost fallen to despair, but it had been saved by the one species too stubborn to know when they were beaten. The darkness had ruled for millions of years, but it had never faced anything quite like human stubbornness. As the ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying hope to worlds that had forgotten what it looked like, Jake smiled. The universe was a dangerous place, full of threats that hadn't been discovered yet. But whatever came next, the galaxy would face it with human determination and the knowledge that giving up was never really an option. The darkness had won for a long time, but humans had descended from the stars, and they had brought the light with them.